So here is a pie chart or a piece of data from a study by Gregory et al., which is from a large data set collected longitudinally, including children from the ages of 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 18, 21, 26, and up to the age of 32 in adulthood. And they tracked how many people or percentage of people had anxiety. And I'll give you a moment to just look at this pie chart, and I think something will jump out at you in terms of what population or age group was anxiety the most common. As you can see, it is this light green, mint green section of the pie chart, which corresponds to the 11 to 15 age group. And obviously that is in relation to our question, because we're talking about 14-year-olds. So 14-year-olds, we've got to bear in mind, data suggests have a high proportion of anxiety onset, and it's an age where anxiety is particularly likely to arise. Why is this? Well, again, we can look towards developmental neuropsychology to see why this might be the case. And again, we've looked at emotional processing in past lessons and how this plays into decision making. Emotional processing and the development in emotional processing during adolescence also has a big impact on mental health and mental illness. So differences in emotional processing, specifically in the right amygdala that develop, can give rise to the emergence of psychopathology, which is essentially a really fancy word of saying mental illness, like anxiety and like depression in children and adolescents. And, you know, a trigger warning here a little bit, but this can also lead to some slightly more distressing symptoms like self-harm. And you can see that self-harm in adolescents is particularly prevalent, compared to about 4.4 to 5% in adults. That's the sort of average rate. It's found that in adolescents, this rate tends to be around 10% for girls, and less so for boys, but you know, it's a lot higher in adolescents. So how might this all impact our decision-making abilities then? Well, for some people suffering from illnesses like schizophrenia or substance abuse disorder and other mental illnesses, making the right decisions can become incredibly difficult. In fact, many mental illnesses feature problems involving cognition, so our ability to think properly and understand things properly, or otherwise known as comprehension. And these include depression and bipolar disorder. Decision-making ability, therefore, varies in healthy people too, sometimes as a consequence of differences in genetics. So there we can see a really, really important point. Mental illnesses, including depression, but also including things like schizophrenia and substance disorder, can make our abilities to make decisions more difficult, and they can compromise our ability to make correct decisions. As we can see from our previous data, depression rates rise in adolescence, right? So therefore, we can argue that, well, it might be that in adolescence, especially those who suffer from things like depression, may be less able to make correct choices.